the summer I graduated from high school, I was on a hayride with a buddy of mine, Frank, and I we were goofing around. I fell off the hayride and it ran over me, and I died for a little bit.
It's the Health in the Real World podcast. It's time to start the show with Chris Janke as your host. Here to give you everything that you need when it comes to fitness strategies. We keep it simple and easy. It's your roadmap to get healthy. You don't need equipment and you don't need a gym. Just the right strategies to get you fit and trim.
Welcome to Health in the Real World. We are here today with Jim Adams. Jim, how's it going today?
It's going good. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great.
Yeah.
Let's see how this goes. I'm outside, so hopefully we don't get too much air picking up on this. But glad to have you here, Jim. Why don't you introduce yourself to the audience a little bit? Tell a little bit about what you do.
Thanks for having me on, Chris. My name is Jim Adams. I have been a trainer for 30 years. I've owned my own training studio for almost 6 years. The last 6 years, I am a member of the Secret Trainer Society, which is an organization of fitness business owners from around the country. And then I host a podcast, Masters in Fitness Business Podcast. I've been doing that for about 4 years. And I recently wrote a book called Masters in Fitness Business, which will be released soon. And I also produce a podcast for my training studio. It's called Shit Trainers Say.
Nice.
So,
that's awesome.
Yeah, so that's what I do.
Nice. And I think it's tomorrow, right? Where I'm on your show.
That is correct.
Looking forward to that too.
Mm-hmm.
So great. That's awesome. So Jim, let's say you meet somebody, let's say at a party, they find out you have 30 years of experience as a trainer, and they admit through their, party confessional that they are not as fit as they want to be. What's kind of your follow-up questioning, or what kind of advice do you give to that super beginner?
Well, that's a good question. In that scenario, first of all, that never happens. You're out at a party, in a social gathering, somebody finds out you're a trainer and they start hitting you up with fitness questions. That never happens. That's what I call a chance to get a new client.
Exactly.
So I would tell them I would ask them, well, when was the last time you exercised? What's your activity level? Do you sit in a chair all day? Are you on your feet all day? Things like that. And then also, what are you looking to do? Are you want to train for a triathlon, or you just want to look better in your clothes? So those would be some of my follow-up questions. And, to be honest with you, at this point, 30 years in the business, most of my follow-up questions will be, the goal of them will be to get them into the club, to come in for an assessment, get them into the club, because then that's when they become a member.
Right. And then once they're a member, then the results will start to happen, right? It's hard to sort of piecemeal advice, and the advice is already out there anyway, right? You can just go on YouTube and figure it out, but that's great. So you're trying to get them in, trying to get more of a comprehensive sort of way to serve them, as opposed to just giving little bits of, advice here and there.
Yeah, it's giving them a complete solution. And I guess one analogy that I can think of is I play hockey and I'm a goalie, so that means I'm a little bit crazy. But we were on a team with this former NHL player, and he told one of our players, go in front of the net and put your stick on the ice right here, and I'm going to pass the puck off your stick, and it's going to go into the net. So He went and he did just that. And then in the locker room, I'll never forget, he said, he goes, man, it's great. He goes, man, you got to teach me how to do that. And he said, it's easy. So when you get home from work tomorrow, you just get a bucket of pucks, and then you start passing and shooting them. And you shoot like 2 buckets a day, every day for the next 10 years. And then you'll be able to do it. So, it's the same approach with anything, right? Including fitness. I can give you a tip at a party, but that's not going to get you fit. What's going to get you fit is taking action consistently over time. And so to get them into the club and have them become a member facilitates that process and provides them with a full solution.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting. That's one thing I tell my clients is that almost any goal is attainable if you spread the time frame out long enough, right? And you're talking 10 years, you can literally become a different person in 10 years. That time frame
Yes.
is very
Mhm.
realistic. You could literally go from 150 pounds overweight to competing in professional bodybuilding shows in 10 years. You have to kind of know what you're
Mhm.
doing. You have to have some guidance. You have to be extremely disciplined the entire time. You can't
Mhm.
really take a break. But yeah, absolutely. I think that's great. So, Jim, you've been a trainer 30 years. What got you started originally? So, right, you're talking right about 1990, that kind of time frame. What got you started originally? What got you interested?
Yeah, I started January 1990. What got me interested in fitness was actually I was on the summer I graduated from high school. I was on a hayride with a buddy of mine, Frank, and we were goofing around. I fell off the hayride and it ran over me, and I died for a little bit, just a little bit, and had the whole experience and everything. And so when I woke up in the hospital, they told me what had happened, and I wound up losing my spleen. And they said I was going to be immune compromised, and so I had to be really careful. And I lost like 20 pounds. So I got out of the hospital, and I just felt weak and frail, and I hated it. And I didn't like feeling that way. So I started working out just as a rehab. And then I started going to college, and then I would take all my electives in like nutrition, kinesiology, physiology, biology, just for my own benefit because I wanted to learn how to be in better shape. And so that's what got me started in fitness, was that I felt just weak and frail and fragile. And and I hated it, and I just did not want to feel that way. And working out kind of gave me that confidence and empowered me a little bit. So that's where I fell in love with it.
Got it. Wow, that's incredible. You literally got run over by a tractor and died. And what was the timeline like after that happened? You're in the hospital. I imagine you went unconscious. Well, obviously you're dead, but you wake up in the hospital. What did that look like? The first maybe couple weeks or couple months? How did you
Well,
talk yourself out of that?
well, I was in the ICU for a week, in the hospital a total of 2 weeks. And when I woke up in the ICU, it was kind of it was kind of surreal, to be honest with you. And I was just kind of trying to piece together what I remember everything going all the way up into going into the operating room. And then the whole, so I spent most of the time just trying to make sense out of the experience that I just had. Because I really couldn't talk, because I was on a ventilator, so I couldn't really talk to anybody. I couldn't communicate, and so I just had a lot of time to think. And so I just sat and processed that probably until I got off the ventilator. And I can't remember the exact timelines, but I wasn't really able to talk to anybody until I got out of the ICU a week later, and that's when the doctors were kind of weighing in and telling me that my immune system was going to be weakened, and that I was going to have to be careful. And I just remember thinking, no, that's not. I'm not going to live like that. I'm not going to feel like I'm the boy in the bubble. So I had always played sports. I'd wrestled and ran track, played hockey in high school, and so I said, well, and I had always just kind of goofed off in the weight room. It was never anything serious. Um, we would go in there like for team workouts, but I mean, I was just snapping towels and doing stupid stuff like that. But but after I got out of the hospital, I had those, those old concrete weight sets in the
Yeah.
basement of my mom's house. So I started working out with those. I think I went to what was it, Muscle and Fitness. I grabbed a copy of Muscle and Fitness, had Lee Haney on the cover, with that ridiculous lat spread of his. And and then I started doing workouts straight out of there until I got far enough in college where I was then starting to learn about periodization and kind of the science behind training. So, and then I started to incorporate that into my workout, and then wound up doing bodybuilding. I did bodybuilding shows I did natural shows from 1989, and my last show was 2003. It gave me a calling. It gave me a purpose. So for me, I look at it as a positive experience. I look at it as a good thing, because it brought so much to my life. And it came at the right time too, because I remember when I was graduating high school, when you're in high school, that's your whole world, right? You can't see anything outside that bubble of high school. And then as high school's ending, there was almost like this panic, like, what do I do now? Right. Now I have to go, create a life for myself, and I have no clue what I want to do. So it came at a good time, because then it gave me a calling for my life. I actually started going to school for social work. And that's what I wound up. Those were my first 2 or 3 jobs out of school, or in social work, working in hospitals. But I also kept up with the fitness. It gave me also a calling to take better care of myself as well, and take better care of my body. So it gave me purpose. It gave my life purpose. So I would say it was a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, being able to look back on challenging circumstances, and there's 2 types of people, or, you can generally categorize people into 2 different categories: somebody who's going to let that defeat them, or someone who is going to let it shape them. And it sounds like you definitely let it shape you and kind of catapulted you into what you're still doing 30 years later. I think it's awesome.
Yeah. And I haven't really talked to anybody else who's had kind of a past life, not a past life, but a near-death experience. But I've read several articles, and I haven't met one person yet who thinks it's a bad thing. They always come out with something resoundingly positive about it, and the same is true for me.
Yeah, definitely can give you perspective once you've gone through something that's of that magnitude, right? It's like, all right, it kind of makes the small things actually look small, right?
Yeah, for me, it was more about inclusion, because it helped me realize that we're all kind of the same. We're all in this together, and we're all connected. And what one of us does affects all of us. And so it made me realize that on a much bigger scale. Because when I was 18, all I was worried about was me, So it just made me feel more connected, and made me realize the importance of the whole, and not just me. And so that's a good thing, I think.
That's a great thing.
And also goes towards like energy. I tell you that probably one of the most prominent things that sticks out about that whole experience is that I could, and I always feel crazy when I say this, but I could feel individuals' presence at the hospital without actually seeing them. I knew that certain people were there just by I could feel their energy or their presence, right? And then when I got out, when I was in the regular hospital room and I was talking to people, I would ask them, was so-and-so here, was so-and-so? And I had not seen them and was not aware that they were there, but yet I was aware that they were there. And so it made me realize that there is something to energy and vibing and people connecting and things like that are much bigger than I ever realized. And so it just made me feel, I guess, more plugged in is a good term.
Was that the first time you had ever experienced anything like that? Or did you sort of have that kind of pushed it to the forefront for you?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's awesome. So Jim, we're going to wrap up with one final question. You're called by a university to give the speech at a graduation. What in a minute or two, what's your speech to the graduates, the 21, 22-year-olds who are about to start their adult lives?
I would tell them to start with an end in mind. I would tell them to picture themselves at the end of their life and what do they want that to look like? And be very specific as far as where you live, the people you have around you, the people you have in your life, the type of life you have, what people say about you, what people think about you, what people feel about you. And start with that and then reverse engineer your life around that.
Jim, tell people how to get a hold of you, your book, your podcast, website, all that information.
Sure. To check me and the podcast out, just go to trainerjim.net, trainerjim, Jim, not GYM.net. And you can find out more about me, more about the podcast. If you want to know more about the studio that I own, go to catalyststl.com. And all the information, the podcast, the gym site, if you want to become a member, you can sign up through the website. So go to trainerjim.net or catalyststl.com. On Instagram, I'm at MIFB Podcast, Masters in Fitness Business Podcast, MIFB Podcast, and Catalyst is at Catalyst Strength.
Nice. Great. Thank you so much. Jim Adams, our guest today, Health in the Real World podcast. Jim, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Chris. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the Health in the Real World show. Make sure to like and subscribe and comment down below. Visit mycorebalance.com to learn more.